George Clanton just released Ooh Rapaya, and I feel like it's probably my album of the year so far. I think it is like a little bit better than everything else I've listened to this year, and that first four tracks on this album is so good to me. You, of course, have I've Been Young and Justify Your Life, which I feel like have to be two of the best singles of this year. And, I've Been Young is one of my favorite songs of all time at this point. And then I think Everything I Want is probably the next best song on this album, and it's the first song in the album. It just kicks it off so strong. You have those first four tracks, and I feel like those first four tracks, if they were spread over a whole album, it would be the best album of all time, just because those first four tracks are just such a, solid first four tracks. But then it gets a little bit weak, in my opinion, with You Hold the Key and I Found It, which I don't think is bad, but I feel like he just doesn't try and outdo himself with those tracks, and they're kind of like this, not filler, but it's just like, it's a lot of just sounds of like that same chill wave, neo psychedelia, dream pop, baggy type of stuff, but it's like, it's more in the vibe of his old music with like neo or E-Spirit. So it's like, it's not what, I don't know, he's not trying to enhance the music there, but I feel like it is still solid. And I think overall, this album is extremely good, of course. I think it is my album of the year, but it's not disappointing. It's just like, I feel like George could have made a better album with this, even though he didn't. But either way, this is still a great album in its own right. I mean, I feel like they're at least, like Ooh Rapaya is also a great song in its own right. And For You I Will, I just feel like it's more of a vibe at the end versus the first four songs have more of a nice structure to them, and they kind of tell their own story. Everything I Want, though, is such a great song. Right now on Rate Your Music, it only has a 4.4 rating versus I've Been Young has a 4.8 rating. I think Everything I Want is my second favorite song on this album, and I've Been Young is, of course, a great song. Either way, though, this really probably matched my expectations for this album. I mean, Slide was definitely a great release when it came out itself, but I feel like Slide again has three really great songs, and then the rest of it is kind of this mush of again, super solid vibes, but nothing like super substancy and substantial from those. And like Living Loose, Make It Forever, and You Lost Me There are three of probably my favorite songs of all time. Living Loose is just an amazing song, and I feel like it could be one of the best songs of all time. Again, with I've Been Young, like these are just totally great songs, but the rest of this album is just kind of, I wouldn't say again filler, but it just keeps the vibe from those first songs, but it kind of takes out a little bit of the substance that the first few songs have on this one. Either way, though, I think it really matched my expectations for George Clanton, and I feel like this one has to compete for album of the year for sure. With Scaring the Hose by JPEG Mafia, or another one for me at least was Eve's Tumors. Whatever, I don't want to say the whole thing. Caroline Polachek also had a solid album, but I feel like this one to me is probably the best I've listened to all year, just because of those first four tracks. They just started off so solid, and then like I said, it doesn't drag on, but the substance is pulled out of it a little bit, and then it kind of comes back at the end. But the first four tracks are just so punchy and so solid. It kind of allows the rest of the album to not like drag on, but like sink a little bit. But it's still solid. I don't know. The first four tracks, I've Been Young, is I think one of the best tracks this year that came out. I think it's probably the best song of the year. And I don't know. It's not that I am disappointed with this, because I'm not at all, but it's just like you listen to those first four songs and they just blew me out of the water. And the rest of it is also good, but it's more of a vibey sound than like actually what I would have wanted from George Clanton. Either way, though, this is probably the best album of the year. There's been some other good competitors, but this was an album I was waiting on for a while. George Clanton is probably one of my more favorite artists, and especially when you came in with some really solid singles with I've Been Young and Justify Your Life. And I feel like those are, probably two of the best songs of the year. And then you come in with Vapor King Subreal, which is a really weird single to me. doesn't really, it just kind of feels like a filler track. And there's also two tracks in there, and they're both like not really, there's not really a lot of, singing. And I don't know. I just feel like Vapor King Subreal threw off my expectations to the album, but that kind of represents like the three tracks. I guess, I mean, it's two tracks on its own, but I'm saying like Vapor King Subreal on its own kind of represents what the back half of the album feels like to me. Even though I feel like those are probably the two worst songs on the album, it feels like the substance that Justify Your Life and I've Been Young had were like a lot more, while Vapor King Subreal was kind of like the back half of it. Either way, though, I feel like this has to be, a lot of people's, best tracks of the year. I feel like, or best album of the year. I feel like just the vibe that George Clanton created with this album, and just the hard hitting with the beginning of the album. I think Everything I Want, it doesn't come in for like 10 seconds. I turned up my headphones when I was listening to it, and then just punches in, and it's just such a great like vibey sound. I love the like baggy and like chill wave sound of that. And I feel like just everything George Clanton does has been pretty solid. I didn't even realize this guy is 35 years old, but I'm hoping he can still put out some really solid music. I mean, it's been 5 years since Slide came out, and I think this album, to me, definitely exceeds what Slide did on its own. I don't think Ooh Rap Ya is any super amazing, the best of the last 10 years, but I think it is definitely one of the best albums this year. And yeah, it can definitely compete with JPEG Mafia, Scaring the Hoes. And I don't know. I just feel like this is just an album that made me smile. It's nothing that like is gonna blow your mind. I feel like the first few songs definitely, I mean, they didn't blow my mind because I had already listened to I've Been Young and Justify Your Life, and I feel like nothing really topped those. But it just is such a great album, and I it's like disappointing to see that the last few songs weren't as good as the first four, in my opinion. And it like I said, it didn't drag on, but I just feel like if they added a little more substance, this could have been definitely the best album of the 2020s and one of the best albums of the like 2000s in general, of this whole century. Yeah, I don't know. Either way, though, it's still a really solid album, but I just feel like he was so close to making just the perfect album, and he didn't do it, but still it's a great album, and it's something that I'm just going to keep on listening to and keep on getting into that vibe. Maybe I'll like it even more, but either way, this is a 9 out of 10 for me. It's a great album, and I think everyone has to listen to this.